Hey, welcome back to the Therapy Unzipped podcast. I hope you guys are doing well. And if you're struggling, of course, we are always here to help. Today will be a show where I offer at least one story, maybe a few stories. I don't know. I love stories. So it'll be a storytelling episode. I'm, of course, recovering from a little bit of a chest cold, but it's all good. And my partner is away doing some spectacular work, and I hope he is doing well. So, anyway, buckle in, listen, and just take in the stories that I'm going to share with you today. In each story embedded are some lessons, some interesting things, some revelations, some insight, maybe just a little bit of I can relate to that. And stories can be good, can be uplifting, can be sad, but also have a point to them. So, anyway, I'll share a story or two today. We'll just see how this goes as dealing with this funk. But you know what? This is just part of our human experience dealing with pain and suffering. So the stories today may help to illustrate that a little bit. Anyway, these are sort of more Eastern philosophy, Zen type stories that I'm going to share with you. And so don't get bogged down with any of the religious aspects to it. Just pay attention to the potential lessons in the stories. Anyway, so here we go. Here's the first story. This takes place, of course, before time existed, ancient Asia somewhere, right? In a monastery. And in the monastery, customarily, we have, monks who are upholding scriptures, ways of doing things, traditions, meditations, being in the moment, protecting their stories. And so in this particular monastery, they took a vow of celibacy and they were celibate for decades and they had routines that they would engage in and they honored each other and respected each other. They found ways to handle suffering and pain and to do good work. And they lived as a community. Part of their community work was continuing the tradition of copying down the religious texts, and they would do that to memorialize them on paper or on wood, where they would hand carve it into wood. And so they had the older relics from the teachings that were passed down, sort of stored away, and they would make a copy, and then they would make a copy of the copy, so on and so forth to the best of their ability. And one day, one of the monks was working on one of these copies, copy of a copy, and he made a little bit of a boo-boo and corrected it, and then thought about it for a second. If I make a little bit of a mistake, maybe the next person may not catch my mistake or my error in it, and they might make the same mistake. And so he began wondering, hmm, this is a copy of a copy. And you know as well as I do that copies tend to degrade over time, especially as they're copied and recopied. And so he went to the leader, the abbot, to discuss this. And so he went to the abbot and he said, I'm making a copy of a copy, and I almost made a little boo-boo, and I caught myself and corrected it, but I'm not sure that that might translate to the next person. And I was thinking maybe at some point we should check the originals to make sure that, we're upholding the values and the scriptures and things like that. And so the abbot thought on this and he said, that's a very good idea. In fact, I'm going to go down, I'm going to take this copy that you've presented, and I'm going to go through the process of double checking. And so I'm going to go down into the basement of the monastery and pull out the old relics that were preserved, and I'm going to make sure that we're upholding everything. Because these have been copied, I mean, for thousands of years. And so probably good to double check things. So the abbot went down into the basement and he wasn't heard from for a long time, several hours. And so the monk decided, I'm going to go check on the abbot and see what's doing. And so he goes down there and he hears a commotion and he hears cries and screams and muffled. And he goes in to the basement, opens the door, and sees the abbot in there in a pillow, crying, sobbing, beating his head into the pillow. And he says, "Abbot, Abbot, what's going on?" And the abbot's, "No, no, no. It was celebrate. It was celebrate." So anyway, a copy of a copy of a copy tends to degrade and at times can cause harm down the road. Think about your perceptions of things. How often do you perceive something, whether it's a text message or whether it's a facial expression or certain body language or something that somebody said or did, and you interpret it in a different way, and it may be to your demise or may cause actual harm in your life when in fact the actual thing that was happening may not have been what you thought it was going to be. I mean, part of our human experience is suffering, but it's how we experience the suffering, what we do with it, how we perceive it, that tends to affect us very deeply. The first strike on us is inevitable. We're going to experience some sort of pain, whether that's physical pain, emotional pain, spiritual pain, mental pain, and anguish. We're going to experience grief and loss. This is just part of who we are. What do we do with that? How do we work through that? How do we experience the suffering and not let it cause more pain, more anguish, more anxiety, a product of our own doing? And part of it is through us taking time and being in the present moment, enjoying what is. We don't know what tomorrow is going to hold, and we definitely cannot go back into the past and undo any of the traumas or anything that happened. We can't redo things that we wish we hadn't done or that others had done unto us. But right now, in the present moment, we can experience happiness and joy, especially in our society here. It's always future oriented, isn't it? It's always, you will be happy once you have that right relationship, once you have that new gadget, once you have that amount of money in the bank, once you have that right vehicle or that right house, or, it's always something in the future, but never right now. And I would encourage you, and I'd love to promote this. Let's be and choose to be happy in this present moment. Let's focus on the things that we can truly be grateful for because it's all around us. There are amazing things that's happening. Even if we're experiencing pain and suffering, whatever that is for you, there are still some pretty amazing things that are occurring right now in this present moment. Another story. So there was a man who would take his family every summer up in North Carolina to a little lodge, like cabin for the summer. Had a nice big beautiful lake, and he would take his family out on the boat and they would fish, small little boat, little rowboat, and they'd go out and they'd fish and they enjoy, um, fun out there in the outdoors. They'd go in to the woods and experience nature. And it was nice to be cut off from technology and from just the hustle and bustle of, everyday life, maybe even city life. And so they would enjoy being, for a few weeks, being in this cabin. And so customarily, the gentleman, as any father does, he needs to have his own time and space. A lot of time and energy is spent providing for the family, being a good father, being a good husband, just being a good man and being productive, and doesn't have a whole lot of time to himself. And so when everybody was put to bed, asleep, winding down for the evening, every once in a while he would take the boat out on the lake in the evening time to just kind of be with his own thoughts for a moment. And so one night he did just that. It was just after dusk, and it was starting to get dark, and the man, after dinner and saying, goodbyes to his family, said, I'm going to go out and just have some peace and quiet for myself. Family was okay with that. They were doing their own things. And so he went out, he took the little boat out, and he kind of paddled out there and stopped. Just took everything in. Took in the moonlight, took in the gentle lapping of the waves against the side of the boat, and just sat with his own thoughts. And it was calming, contemplative. It felt really good to just be with himself, to not have to do. I mean, we're human beings, not human doers. So at times we need to pause and just take a break. And so he was able to do this. And in the distance, he sees another small boat approaching, kind of headed in his direction. Now he's stopped, he's not moving. And the moonlight is robust, but he can't quite make out who it is. I mean, he has been coming here for the summers for a long time and knew most of the other families and people around and couldn't make out who was in this craft. And so he's trying, he's squinting, and as the boat approaches a little closer, the moon's sort of hitting him in the face, and he can't quite make out um, any person there who it might be. And so he shouts, hey, buddy, be careful. No response from the other boat. And the boat steadily, slowly keeps getting closer and closer. And if you're not aware when you're on the water, it's not like being in a vehicle where you can just turn the wheel and move out of the way. It takes a little bit of effort, to change your course. Anyway, so the boat is headed right for him, gonna sort of T-bone him. And so the boat continues on its journey towards the man, and he's getting a little irritated, because there's no response from the other person. And so he starts screaming a little bit louder, hey, buddy, like you're gonna run into me. Stop, move, like get out of the way. At this point, the boat's getting a little bit too closer, to him where he doesn't have the ability to kind of pedal, grab the oars and move out of the way. It would take, since he's from a stopped position and the speed of which the other craft is coming at him is pretty robust. So he gets angry and he starts screaming obscenities and cursing at the other person in the boat, that you're going to cause, an accident, and you can imagine what he was saying. And as the boat comes up and hits his boat, he realizes that there was nobody in the other boat. It was empty. And so there wasn't a whole lot of damage. These are smaller boats. And he gets a little embarrassed that he had such a commotion and shouted these profanities, and that the anger was so robust in him that he didn't realize he had been holding on to that. And it wasn't anger towards that person, it was anger that was built up from just everything else in life, from experiencing suffering and dealing with just life in general and stress. And he didn't really have much of an outlet for that except for being out there on the water, coming to this log cabin every once in a while during the summers. And he was embarrassed about that anger. And once again, this helps to illustrate the power of our perceptions, what we're thinking, and how we're reacting to that. Our emotional state as a result of our thoughts can really get us into trouble. We need to be more in the moment. We need to be more present. We need to be here and observe what's factual, instead of how our minds are causing more arrows to strike us, when in fact, the initial one, the inevitable arrow, is going to happen as we are human beings and we're going to experience suffering. But we don't need to create more undue suffering and anxiety in our lives because of our thought processes. So, to counteract this, we need to be more in the present moment. And of course, we talk about this a lot, and it's an art of being more in the present moment. So, when you feel that anger and hostility bubble up, It's not related to the thing that's happening right now or the misunderstanding or your perceptions. It's all the crap that came before that is building up. We need to discharge that. We need to have an outlet for that. So, anyway, I hope you like these stories. In fact, maybe you'd like one more to help illustrate the power of being in the present moment. There was another gentleman who had a pretty simple life, who lived out in the woods. A lot of themes in sort of Eastern philosophy, aren't there? Anyway, so he had a simple life, and he spent more time out in the woods, out in nature, just being. And this was out, in Asia somewhere. And so he was out one day, middle of the day, beautiful day, just living, just experiencing life, the animals and the trees and the breeze. And it was a beautiful thing. And he was a man who desperately um, appreciated being in the present moment. In fact, he worked hard at it over the course of his life because he wanted to be able to effectively deal with pain and suffering. He had experienced a lot early on in life, and so he desperately wanted to stave off that and not allow it to affect him so deeply. So he decided to live secluded, cut off from the rest of the world out in the woods. And this felt really good this particular day, as in the jungle in Asia, there are tigers. And he was out there and he heard the ferocious, bone-chilling roar from a tiger. And so um, he looked, and the tiger not only was roaring at him, but was quickly approaching. He didn't know what he had done to upset the tiger. He didn't know what was going on. But a tiger is now chasing him. And so quick thinking, he's got to get out of the way. He can't outrun a tiger, so he's got to think fast. He starts running, sprinting, and he knew that just out on the other side of the clearing was a cliff, that then went over into a ravine. And so as he gets closer to the cliff, there's a bunch of, trees and grass and whatnot, and he sees a vine that's, from a tree that's hanging over the cliff, and he decides, I'm gonna grab this vine and come down into the ravine, and that'll enable me to get away from the tiger. The tiger is gonna stop. He's not gonna jump or attack, and go over the edge. So anyway, he climbs down on this vine, and the tiger's up top, looking down, growling at him. Afraid for his life, he starts to shimmy down this vine. And as he looks down to make sure that he's going to land safely, there's another tiger pacing down at the bottom. Oh, oh my God. Fear above, danger, and fear below. Imminent. So, anyway, he's hanging on the side of this cliff down in the ravine off of this vine that's not going to support his weight much longer. And being the man in the moment, he just sort of looks around and observes, takes stock on his life, and he sees growing out of the side of this ravine a strawberry on a little bush, just one single strawberry. And in the moment, he reaches out, lets go of the vine with one hand, grabs the strawberry, takes a bite. Ah, excuse me. It's the most delicious strawberry he's ever eaten in his entire life. Beautiful, amazing, juicy, robust. It was in the perfect position to grow. The rain washing over the edge of the cliff, the sunlight coming and hitting it. Perfect, perfect spot for a strawberry to grow. The most delicious thing he'd ever eaten. Wow. Can you be in the moment that much? Can you be facing imminent danger and still take stock of what is right now? I mean, this story illustrates the power of how our past traumas are there and ferocious, and the future is unknown, uncertain. We don't know. And it's scary. We have to live in the now. We have to be here. We have to enjoy the fruits of our labor now. We can't be so future oriented. We can't give in to the anxiety. We have to just enjoy the strawberry now in the moment. Doesn't matter what's going to happen later. We can plan for the future, but how many times has the future worked out exactly how you planned or had expected it in your mind? It doesn't. So be more in the moment. Enjoy whatever you've gained from these stories. And please feel free to reach out and share anything and everything that you want with us. Ask any questions and let us know what you want us to talk about. And we'll see you soon.